it just hit an IED. We're all dead. We're all, looking out the windows. The guys called them window lickers, right? And you're just like looking out the window. In one of the houses, like behind us, it was a brothel, and we hear all this screaming. They called it the Sizzler, and it wasn't a Sizzler at all. People are trying to blow these places up, but they burn the place down. I don't think friendly fire is the right word for this. This is just basically gangster shit, right? All right, I'm back, rocking the weird David Hasselhoff hair here because I really don't want to go to a barbershop during the pandemic. And I'm back to tell another Afghan story. I'm going to pick up where I left off with the story about the escape from the Afghan employers. And I've been meaning to record this for a while. The story's kind of got a lot of twists and turns, and I've sat down a few times and tried to get through it, and I just get a little off track. So bear with me. Keep in mind, these stories are from my memories from 10 years ago. And in the previous one, there's a few places where I misspoke, like saying Herat's in the east of the country when it's in the west and stuff like that. If you hear me say something, if you catch something that I've either remembered wrong or just didn't understand correctly, do me a favor, hit the comments, let me know. I really appreciate it. To those of you out there that are like, oh, this is all made up, I don't really know how to, I'm not going to try to convince you guys because I think most of you that take that approach are just trying to troll me. But this really happened. So quick recap, I'd escaped from the Afghans. What had happened was I got tricked into going to work for these Afghans. It was way too dangerous. And when I tried to quit, they told me it was illegal to quit. So I found another company that was desperate enough for an electrician to come and get me. And I snuck out in the middle of the night. So one of my first corrections to the previous story, I had previously said it was a couple of ex-Marines that came and picked me up. Now, first of all you Marines out there, kindly let me know that there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. Gotcha. What do I call you guys? Former Marines, semi-retired Marines? I don't know. But also, it actually wasn't two ex-Marines, two semi-retired Marines. One of the guys was a Marine. The other guy was ex-DEA, former DEA. Now, the Marine, this guy Ryan, he was just a classic badass. Huge guy. He was like training. He wanted to go pro, like mixed martial arts. Pretty awesome dude. Also, pretty messed up dude. Like, I think really, almost everyone that's working over there, they got some sort of issue. And this guy, I'm not sure, but I think he had some bad addiction issues. It kind of showed. I think he'd been blown up a few times and was dealing with pain management, and it had gotten a little out of control. The other guy, the former DEA guy, man, I don't remember this guy's name. We'll call him Bob. But he reminded me of Walter from The Big Lebowski, John Goodman's character. He was way too much like that guy, down to like he converted to Judaism when he gotten married, and like he gotten divorced, and he was way more into it than his ex-wife, just to, I guess, prove a point or something. But so these are the guys that picked me up. We took off for the new compound, and the new compound, it was real similar to this place I'd been living with the Afghans. Big wall around it to keep people out, razor wire on top. This was like a 10 or 11 room mansion, big cement house. We got in there, I got settled in, and as I'd said in the previous video, one of the first things I did was message my previous employer and let him know, hey, I haven't been kidnapped, but that was bullshit where you said it was illegal to quit, and yeah, I quit, I'm gone. And they had said, well, you're not going to get out of the country. We sent people to the airport to intercept you. So I let my new employer know this, and they just laughed about it. They're like, yeah, don't worry about it. We've got an Afghan partner, because they did a lot of security work, and for the really dangerous stuff, they had this security contractor that they partnered with that was all Afghans. They're like, yeah, the owner of that company is the number 3 of the secret police in Afghanistan. It's taken care of. And in fact, it was. A few days later, I got an email from one of the employees, Cameron, at that previous company, and he's like, what did you do? They've thrown the owner in jail. And I'm like, good, he's trying to keep me prisoner. Deserves to be in jail. But so that's really where this story starts. This new company, they were into all kinds of security contracting. Now, this is 2010. And this was before, like some of you that are really dialed into the history of the contracting in Afghanistan know, it got really cowboy out there. The security contractors were getting out of control. Some of them were doing some bad stuff. A lot of them were doing some bad stuff. The government cracked down on the security contractors, but this is before that. What they were making most of their money on, I think, was they would take these really high risk security contracts, like escorting a bunch of fuel trucks across the country, right? So I think occasionally they had Americans actually do the escorting, but they kind of learned, hey, that doesn't work out too well. It's too high risk. And usually they were using this Afghan partner to do that work. So the company was into that. They were also into, they had a big demining contract. And more recently, they'd gotten into, like just construction work. I think they just assumed that, like the security work, that, it was a gold rush and they'd be able to make a lot of money off of it. And it can be, but they didn't have the expertise. They didn't have the knowledge. They were in over their heads. I mean, I replaced an electrician that they had to fire because he was defrauding the company. He was doing that by ordering 2 or 3 times as much material than he needed and then selling the extra material. Now, a company that knows what they're doing would notice, hey, this is not the stuff we need to build this. These guys didn't catch it because of that. They caught it because this moron was using his company email to do all his sketchy transactions, and they reviewed his email and figured out he was robbing them. So I go to work for this company. What I'm working on, the main project I'm working on, is they're building these large buildings out of shipping containers. Like they'll lock like 30 shipping containers into like this 3-story high, huge building. It was basically his housing. The project sounded pretty cool to me. I was excited to learn about building with shipping containers. So they had one construction project like this going on at Bagram and one at Sharana. And both of those projects, the people actually doing the work were these big crews of Filipino guys. And then they had another site for this project on the outskirts of Kabul. That place was all Afghans. They were doing the prefabrication on these shipping containers, and they were actually doing a lot of the wiring on the shipping containers. Now, legally, I was supposed to be at all these sites all the time, watching these guys, supervising and making sure that they're not doing anything dangerous or stupid. Basically, not wiring it in a way that's going to, catch fire and put people in danger. But of course, as one person overseeing, it was probably 40 plus Filipinos and like 5 or 10 Afghans. Hang on, there's a car passing here. So I'm supervising all these guys in all these different places, and that's just not possible. It's not possible to watch that many guys and make sure that they're doing their work right. So that was one of the first problems I saw right away with this company. I'm like, yeah, you've got one licensed electrician for, 3 different sites and, probably like 50 different guys. The compound in Kabul was really too dangerous to visit and also too gross. I went out there once. I went out there, piled into a vehicle. We were actually carrying weapons. I was actually, I had a weapon rolling out there. I didn't have any training on it or how to, I didn't know how to use this gun. And mostly I was just an ammo holder. They'd stuff my vest with extra ammo. So we roll out there and it looks like something out of Mad Max. There's all these shipping containers in various states of construction, and the Afghans are, they're wiring everything wrong, like Afghans do, and stuff shorting out. Nothing's in conduit. They're just pulling bare wires through the holes that they've cut in these shipping containers. And I went to go use the bathroom out there, and they point off into the corner, and I start walking over there. Thank God I just had to take a piss because they've got a platform built and a hole cut in the center of it, and then just this mountain of shit below the platform, right? Well, there's a massive swarm of shit flies. So like you go over there and you've just got these shit flies all over you. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to spend every day out here covered in shit flies telling these Afghans over and over again that, they're wiring it wrong. I knew right away working for this company that the way they were trying to do their construction wasn't going to work out really well. So within a week of working for them, I once again applied for one of the big defense contractors that lives and works on base. so that hopefully eventually I could get out of the situation. There was a lot of weird stuff going on while I was working for this company. We'd just go hang out in Kabul. Like we'd go walk to the grocery store or we'd go walk to a restaurant. Again, we're living in the Ring of Steel area, but it's still not very safe and it's not very smart to just go walk around. But these guys were, they're cowboys. They like the excitement of it. So we would go do this stuff. I remember one day seeing on the news the little grocery store that we would go to buy toothpaste and stuff like that. Somebody tried to bomb it. No, they were real amateur, and the bomb they made, instead of exploding, it just caught the place on fire. But they burned the place down. It's just little reminders that, hey, like people are trying to blow these places up that we go visit, right? So like, but I mean, we'd load into the car. There was a place, what do they call it? They called it the Sizzler, and it wasn't the Sizzler at all, but it was like a steakhouse. You could get steak and beer. There's places we go to drink, even though it's Afghanistan. And like the guys on military bases may not know this, but if you fly in through Kabul, you're allowed to bring the civilian airport. You're allowed to bring 2 bottles of liquor in. So like anytime someone was coming back from vacation, they'd bring in a couple bottles of liquor. I actually know this 2-bottle rule because I flew in one time. I didn't have any with me. The guy in front of me, he had 4 bottles, right? And they caught him, of course, because they scanned the bags. And I don't know what would have happened to him, how much trouble he would have been in, but probably a lot of trouble. And I saw this because he's right in front of me, and I'm like, oh yeah, those 2 are mine. Saved his ass. If he'd been cool, he would have given them to me, but he wasn't cool. So time's going by. I'm working on this project. I'm also helping them with bids, just like preparing what the materials and costs would be for other big projects they were trying to get. I remember one night we hear all this screaming. It sounds like there's a bunch of people being killed. It's just horrible, horrible, horrible screaming. Well, it turns out in one of the houses, like behind us, it was a brothel. And I guess what had happened was a bunch of Irish guys had gone in there and raised hell, started a big fight or something. I really don't know. So stuff like that is going on around us. That's kind of the general environment in Kabul in the middle of the war. We needed to take a trip to Bagram. I needed to head to Bagram to go check on our construction project there. And we had an unarmored Toyota Surf. And it's one of the better vehicles to have if you want to blend in while you're driving around in Afghanistan. In preparation for that trip, I finally got some training on the weapon that they had me carry. And, I never shot this gun. Never had to pick it up and shoot it. It was an old AK, and I learned how to take it apart, put it together, that sort of thing. It was actually, they had one of their other security guys was a retired Macedonian sergeant. He was the one that took a little time to teach me how to use the weapon. I was scared to ever have to pick it up because if we get ambushed, I'm not going to be much help. I can point and shoot, but I'm probably not going to hit anything other than maybe shoot my own foot. So we go on this drive. It's kind of a long drive from Kabul to Bagram. It's a stressful drive. We're all, looking out the windows. The guys called them window lickers, right? You're just like looking out the window and, trying to make sure there's no activity out there, that you spot it before it's too late. At one point on this road, the car kicked up this rock. This rock hit the bottom of the car with this loud bang, right? And man, like, it didn't matter whether it was these guys that were, like these retired Marine guys or, it didn't matter. We all jumped. We all thought in this little vehicle that was completely unarmored, oh, it just hit an IED. We're all dead, right? Like I think that's what went through my mind. And I think that's what went through everyone else's mind. Bam. And we just kind of laugh about it and keep going. We get to the outskirts of Bagram. We're heading through like a little town, little village that is really close to Bagram, close to the entrance we're coming to. We're stuck in traffic. We're stuck in like bumper to bumper traffic. And there's a convoy heading the other way, big U.S. convoy. It just seems to stretch on forever, vehicle after vehicle after vehicle, all these MRAPs. And, you got soldiers up on the gun on the top of the MRAPs. Well, as we're passing through this little village and the convoy's going one way and we're going the other, kids in the village start throwing rocks, right? They're throwing rocks over us at the convoy. And, I remember, to the guys in the convoy, we blend in. We just look like another Afghan vehicle, right? And these guys are on their guns, and they're looking pissed. They're getting, they're having rocks thrown at them. And man, I'm just thinking, oh, please, please don't let one of these 19-year-old kids decide that's it and open fire, because all hell's going to break loose. And we're in the middle, we're right in between the village and these kids. It's one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, this could be that moment where shit lights up and I'm just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Get to Bagram, review the project that's going on there, and that just further reaffirms my realization that like this setup doesn't work. I can't be in all three places supervising all at once. Now the Filipinos were actually doing pretty good electrical work for unlicensed electricians, but still they're unlicensed. There's some mistakes they're making. And what happens next is the laws about security contractors change. Finally, the government cracks down on this Wild West scene that's happening. And the way it was explained to me, so all these security contractors, what they had started doing, it was more like a racketeering operation than security contracting in some ways. So say you've got a big security contract, you're making a bunch of money escorting these trucks across the country, and whoever you've got that contract with, they get a better offer. They get a lower offer to provide security. Well, you can come back and bid lower, or you can just accept it, or you can do what I was told some of the security contractors over there, especially the Afghan-owned security contractors, is you can show them they're not safe with that other security contractor, right? You can go attack their convoy. So there was, I don't think friendly fire is the right word for this. This is just basically gangster shit, right? So like security contractors were attacking each other. There were no good guys. In light of that, there was a big crackdown on these security contractors. And what ended up happening was the company I work for that had this very powerful Afghan partner they used for their security work, well, they stiffed them for about $1 million, right? They were going to lose that end of the business, so they just decided to not pay them what they owed them. And one day they were like, all right, we're all moving on base. We're all going to have to move on to different bases because they're going to come after us. We can't continue living off base. So one day I was told, hey, pack up. You're going to Sharana. You're going to go manage the project there. So I packed up and went to Sharana. And Sharana was one of my favorite bases in Afghanistan. Really cold, real high elevation base, huge. Kind of sat on top of a hill, and you could see the villages down below, but it didn't really. The whole time I was there, we never had any mortars, we never had any rockets. That was the only base I've ever been to where we never got hit. The closest we ever had was Thanksgiving Day. Someone tried to slip a explosive backpack into the dining facility, the DFAC. But I actually had a great time at Sharana, and I worked there for several months. Now, I didn't really accomplish anything, and part of the reason why was this company, for whatever reason, they had supply chain problems. They couldn't get their parts, and they kept trying to send their security guy, Ryan, into Kabul to buy parts in the local markets there, and that just didn't work. Basically, I spent the entire time with them looking at the project going, yeah, these are still the wrong parts. You don't have what you need to build this building. So I had a lot of days where I'd come into the office, still don't have the parts. Okay, just take off for the day. So I would, I'd just go walk. I'd go hang out in parts of the base that were, Sharana's huge, and there's parts of the base where you could walk to where you didn't even see that you were on base anymore, except for the balloon, the blimp. Basically, I got paid to do nothing for like 9 months. And after 9 months, I finally got the email from a recruiter for one of the larger, more organized, higher paying contractors, and off I went. So this concludes my first trip to Afghanistan. So I went to work for a company called Floor. I've never named them in my previous videos, but that's who I was working for. I flew back to the States because I had to go through their orientation in Greenville, South Carolina. After that, I turned right around I went right back to Afghanistan. I've been back to Afghanistan several times. I know a lot of you watched that video about escaping the Afghans, and you're like, oh, I had an offer to go out to Afghanistan. I'm so glad I didn't go. Don't take that as the norm. My experience was not the norm, right? It's usually not like that. For most people, it's not like that. It's bad. Bad stuff happens, right? Things blow up. It's not a fun place to be, but it's not terrible. You're probably in more danger in the U.S. working on a crabbing boat in Alaska, or you know being an Uber driver, right? Than you are out there. I mean, I'm not 100% sure that's true, but I mean, it's probably comparable. Most people are fine. Everyone does come through it a little different, though. The real risk isn't that you're going to get blown up or lose an arm or something or get shot. The real risk is you're going to be different when you come back. You're going to see some things, or just living in that environment, you're going to have some stuff to deal with. Yeah, this video is getting long again. These videos just, they really ramble on. I'll try to edit this down so that it doesn't take forever to listen to this story. And maybe one of these days I'll get a haircut. There's a lot more to that story, but I could spend 3 hours telling it. And there's one other part I want to tell. I want to talk about the wiring in that compound. So we got to this mansion, and the wiring was bad. They ran off a generator because the wiring in Kabul wasn't really reliable. The electricity wasn't reliable. Well, one day, and I hadn't really looked at it. I'm just there doing my thing, and one day, the power goes out to like half of the building. And they're like, "Hey, can you fix it?" So I start looking into it, and I'm like, "Well, you've bypassed all the breakers in the panel. Like, nothing's wired to a breaker." And I look at the generator, and they've just jumpered past the overcurrent device, the breaker in the generator. So there's nothing to shut off power if wiring's catching fire or melting or whatever. And they're like, "Yeah, did we tell you about the hot wall? Right? Did we tell you about the hot wall?" So I'm like, yeah, that cement wall is really hot. That's turned into a heater. Then the wires melted inside, and it's energizing the cement. And they're like, "Well, can you fix this place?" And after about a day of poking around and looking at how it's wired, I'm like, "I can, but if you guys are paying for it rather than the owner of this building you're renting from, it's tens of thousands of dollars. Electrical supplies are really expensive out there, and everything was just some like cheap Turkish wiring that was poured directly into the cement. Right? It wasn't in any sort of conduit, so like that can't be used. That's all melted, and so it's basically rewiring a mansion in a 10, 11 room compound in Afghanistan, right? So I'm like, yeah, I can, but I mean, it's going to cost this much. And they're like, "Oh, forget it." Right? So and that was about the time when we ended up moving out of there anyway. Yeah. All right. That story rambled, and I don't know if I'm going to, maybe I'll have more Afghan stories. I don't know yet. See you later.